All right, so on this episode of PowerGridTalks, we are sitting down with Kevin Robinson, the founder of Linemen Bullshit, and we're going over a conversation about how most safety programs aren't about safety anymore. They turn into a program about liability and how the industry's kind of morphed that over the years. We also go into how most leadership isn't leadership. It's just an authority figure behind an office somewhere and the policies that kind of shape that. So today we're sitting down with Kevin and going over those things. I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be a good one, so I hope you guys enjoy. You're listening to Power Grid Talks, from the bucket trucks to the boardrooms. I'm your host, Tom Williamson, a journeyman lineman with over 15 years in the trade. Here we bring you real stories and real conversations from the field to the executive suites of the electric utility world. It's about the people who keep the power flowing and the grid strong. Let's get to work. Kevin, what's up, man?
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So if you guys don't know, Kevin is the founder of Linemen Bullshit and also is on social media and multiple different platforms having conversations about the industry. And he's got 25 years in the trade as journeyman lineman, right? And is the founder of that Linemen Bullshit program. And he's here to basically change the way we look at safety, rip the lies out of the culture behind it, and how leadership is kind of maybe not leadership, but just figures at this point. And he's kind of trying to bring that to light and have conversations around that. No polish, no mercy, no bullshit, just the truth from the arena, right?
Absolutely.
Man, I love that mindset, and I think it's conversations like that need to happen right now. Right?
Oh, of course. And then that's, unfortunately, we're not having those conversations.
Yeah.
And that's part of what led into the Lineman Bullshit, the Facebook page, the online school. Difficult conversations are hard.
Yeah.
And they're not comfortable. Nobody likes having them, but we're missing a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about your start in the trade, right? So 25 years ago, how did you get into the industry?
Actually, I got into, and forgive me for all the linemen out there, I started out, my younger brother is actually a journeyman wireman through the IBEW, and I started out on the inside.
Okay.
Not my cup of tea. I like the outdoors. Got away from that, drifted back into some manufacturing things and some leadership roles there, and then transitioned over into the lineman side of things. I knew a couple guys I worked around with, and it led from here. Started out non-union, come up through Davis H. Elliott once upon a time. Some really, really fabulous people there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's good people everywhere, and they've taught me a lot. And then, of course, Eddie Sublett, which I mentioned in a lot of my context and some of the content, he left an impression. If you've seen Landman now with Billy Bob Thornton,
yeah.
This is Eddie Sublett is Billy Bob in the lineman body.
That's
Looks
cool.
Small, short, wiry. He's intense, to say the least.
That's awesome. It is pretty cool how some of those people, you don't realize it in the moment, but they shape your whole path, right?
He literally put me on this path. I mean, and one of his quotes was, I asked him while we were doing something, and I've forgotten what it was now. And he said, "Lum," he said, "that's some lineman bullshit. You wouldn't understand it yet." And I didn't know whether I should be pissed off. I didn't know how I should feel, other than this old man told me that I wouldn't understand. And I thought I had a pretty good grasp on life at that time, but I didn't.
Yeah, and it really is that way in the industry, though. There's some points in the industry going through your training that you don't even know what you don't know yet, right? And people have to put it to you that way, and you're like, oh, hold on a minute. And you get kind of mad in the moment, but then when you step back and look at it, you're like, he was right. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So what did the trade look like 25 years ago versus now?
Well, you got to think that was pre-buck squeeze, pre-wall restraint, a little more cowboyish and Wild West, and even then, it's changed so much in my 25 years, and it's changed so much in the last 5 years. All the technology, everything's progressing. We know better than some of the stuff that we done back in the day. And of course, my back in the day is not some of the old timers and the OGs that have got 40, 50 years in. And we're missing a lot of their experience. We've not had a chance to share, or that knowledge hasn't been passed down for whatever reason.
And they had real knowledge. They had out in the field, learned it the hard way knowledge, right?
Trial and error, and this works, that doesn't, and no bullshit.
So what about, like, has crew size really changed since you started?
It depends on the customers and who you're working for. I mean, I know we've got some 3-man crews now. They're doing pole change outs. I think we're trying to be too lean. And I think that back in the 80s and 90s with the power companies and some of the utilities, that is what has gotten part of the reason we're in the situation we're in. You know, we tried to downsize. Everything's trying to be efficient, trying to be lean. And I get it. You know, they're in the business to make profit, and the more you can do with the less, but there's a line. And we've went way over that line, unfortunately.
Yeah, that need for production with the smallest amount of resources possible is kind of morphed into a situation where it's getting a little scary, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Over the years, I'm sure you've been involved in a lot of storms and moments and situations. Are there any of those moments or near misses that kind of come to mind as something that kind of shaped the way you think about safety?
Oh my goodness. One in particular, it doesn't come right off the top of my head. And after 25 years, they sort of all blend together. I mean, the older you get, you know, they always say time speeds up. I never believed it. It seems to be proven true. You know, between Katrina, they just blend together. Yeah. I mean, you know, some of the stories and people, how they share their experiences and talk to me, you know, as far as incidents and accidents that shaped them, it affects me, and I take it personal. And I think everyone in the trade, in the industry, should feel the same way. I mean, this is a brotherhood, and if they're hurting, we're hurting.
And if it can happen to him, it could happen to you. Right?
And potentially will.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. None of us are above or beyond that. Yeah.
Never will be.
Yeah. What's something in the trade that taught you that life is going to be different? Life's got to change. We've got to do something different.
Probably some of the people I've talked to that have had accidents and incidents that I've had a chance to speak to one-on-one and in person. You know, no one starts out the day thinking they're going to get hurt. Every day that we have an accident, no matter where it is or who's involved, no one starts out the day thinking something's going to happen to them. Even if we're driving to the grocery store, we don't get in the car and think, well, we're going to get in an accident or someone's going to rear end me, or, you know, have a final destination moment where a log truck drops something off. We don't know, and we're just not prepared for that. And that's part of what the education and sharing that knowledge is something where I think we've struggled with, and we've been deficient for several years. Yeah. If you don't know, like you said, you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And it's becoming more and more of an issue every day, I feel like, right? If we're not going to start addressing it, it's just going to keep morphing into this animal that's going to get real scary real fast. It already is scary in my mind, but it's going to get worse. I know out there in the industry, you've lived it, you've bled it. So let's talk about what everyone whispers about behind the scenes, right? But nobody wants to say it out loud, and it's that mindset of what probably what led to the birth of Linemen Bullshit would be that mindset, I would assume, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. So where did the Linemen Bullshit actually come from? Where did that part come from?
The phrase that Eddie told me years ago, Lum, that's some lineman bullshit you wouldn't understand yet. And I didn't know what he meant when he said that's just some lineman bullshit. You know, you hear the word bullshit, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
And what Eddie was meaning, and what I've come to realize, this is the status quo, that it's something we have to do. It's not the right thing, but it's expected of us for whatever reason. We don't agree with it. We don't like it. We just got to do it and eat the shit, pretty much. And why do we have to, is what I was asking. Because I was asking why we were doing something. Well, because that's the way we've always done it, or because we were told to. Yeah, but why? And I've always been naturally inquisitive and probably a pain in the ass to most foremen or and I know it was to my foreman and general foreman and probably to anybody that I work with today. I understand that I can be that type of person. But I want to know the why. If I don't know the why, then how can I do anything? Because you say so? Well, I trust you, but if you can't explain why I'm doing it this way, do you know why we're doing it that way? And that's always rattling around in the back of my mind.
And I feel like that's when you get that because we've always done an answer, it's normally because that person really doesn't know either. They just don't want to tell you that. They want to be the tough guy that doesn't say it.
Yeah.
But They really don't know.
And it's not their fault. They probably weren't taught. They weren't, it wasn't explained to them, or they weren't properly trained. So I feel like them saying, I don't know, makes them feel vulnerable, or they don't want to lose, or they want to save face. And if you're a foreman, it's a position of authority. Everybody looks up to you. Showing a little bit of vulnerability and saying, I don't know, that shows a crack in your armor.
Yeah, makes you weak, right? That's what some people think. Yeah. What was the first lie that you couldn't stomach anymore? What was the point where you're like, okay, it's enough, I've got to do something? Was there like a definitive time?
A couple years ago, and I haven't shared it. Well, if anybody's read some of my material, they've known it. But on May 4th of 2023, I got diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
That was a reality check.
I can imagine.
Like most of us, especially in the trade, I sought solace in the bottom of a bottle, to say the least.
Yep.
And we've all done that, over the years. We use that as a coping mechanism, a way to get through the day.
Calms your demons.
It
right?
does.
Yeah.
At least them puts to bed for a couple hours anyway until they wake back up.
Yeah, it doesn't make them go away. It just calms them for a little bit.
Yep.
And then I think they get a little stronger while they're calming down most of the time.
They come back with a vengeance usually.
Yeah. So that kind of changed your perspective on things?
That was my true watershed moment.
Yeah.
That was my breaking point.
Wow.
A lot of soul searching and self-examination, and what's my life been about? What have I accomplished? What kind of mark have I left? And I've got a 14-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, Kylie and Axel. I've sacrificed time with them. The trade has cost me a lot. I've laid a large, like we all have, sacrifice on the altar of the trade. Time with families, I've divorced. It's not for the weak of heart, to say the least.
There's a lot of shadows in this industry that follow us around that people don't see when they're flipping their light switches on and off every day, right?
And shadows that we don't talk about, even amongst ourselves as linemen. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So you make a decision, and you want to start bringing awareness? You want to start talking to people? What's the drive there?
The Linemen Bullshit page on Facebook was started by another gentleman several years ago, and I was there for the first part of it, and it just sort of grown and morphed into this. The theme behind it with Eddie and the school was always there. I didn't learn till later in life that I liked to talk to people and to teach. Some of the greatest, I won't say joys, but the moments that mean the most to me is when people call and like, that conversation we had, over on Fifth Avenue back in 1997. Actually, no, I don't, but you remind me. And then you have an apprentice that you talked to 20 years ago or taught something that calls and says, hey, man, you know what? I remember because you taught me. And it's the passing on the torch and the knowledge and the creating ripples throughout the industry is just, there's nothing better than that.
That is a cool moment when you start getting people calling you and saying, hey, 10 years ago, we were on this pole in this alley and you told me this. I'll never forget it. It helped me. I still remember this. That kind of stuff is pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And we all have our stories, on storms or whatever, out on the crews and the right-of-ways. We all have the brotherhood stories. But when someone calls and, it's not a bravado story or, hey, can you believe we done this? It's, a heartfelt appreciation.
Yeah.
And it means that the sacrifices that I made with my children and my families, it means something.
Yeah, it wasn't for nothing.
It wasn't for nothing.
Yeah. As you started kind of putting your opinion out there and shaking the tree a little bit, as I would say, right? What's some of the reactions you started getting right off the beginning?
Just shock.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, I said that. And why not? Unless we bring, and I use the analogy a lot of times that, we need to rip the Band-Aid off. Mm-hmm. There's a wound underneath. We've got to quit putting Band-Aids on bullet wounds. We've got to pull it off. We've got to expose it. We've got to let it see the light of day and get air so we can begin to heal and fix the problem. We can put more bandages on it. We can wrap it up. But until we get to the heart of the problem, we're just going to continue to do the same thing over and over.
It's going to keep being the same problem because we're not getting to the heart of it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. As you started putting this content out there, who do you get the most negative pushback from?
To be honest, I've not had a lot of negative pushback, at least
awesome.
on social media. I mean, it's always, you say exactly what we've been talking about for years. I'm glad someone finally has the courage, or, a lot of course, linemen, the profanity, we speak in profanity.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
It's
our
a language. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
A lot of, there's a few, but most of it is because, well, what's this guy got to say? I mean, who is he? What does he know? Why should I care what he has to say? And usually a conversation between me and them, and there's been some pretty heated private conversations on social media back and forth. But majority of it has all been positive, and that we need more of it.
And that's awesome. If you can have these conversations on social media and not get a lot of negative pushback, that just tells you how much it's needed, because there are some negative people on social media. That's usually some of the first people that show up, right?
There's always critics.
Yeah, for sure. Everywhere. So who are you getting the most, I would say, support from, right? Who's cheering the loudest?
Well, on the lineman school, and I know we're going to talk about it in a minute,
Yep.
but there's, I think, 307 people on there now.
Yep.
We started, I literally made it live on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and 10 days later we had 250 people, and now it's up to 300. And it's, it's not a tidal wave like initially, but we're putting out more content, more training, more programs, more things. And then, again, it's just to educate and share knowledge. It's something that we all know. But apprentices, there's been tree guys that have messaged me that, I didn't know that. And we work hand in hand with the tree trimmers, know that, especially on storm restoration.
Yeah.
It's been, I am so, so grateful for the response and how everyone's just sort of stepped up.
That's awesome.
I threw the gauntlet down, and so far 300 people have stood up and answered the call.
Heck yeah. So are you trying to fix the system, or are you trying to just expose what's weak in the system? What would you say?
I can't fix the system. We can fix the system. One person, one voice. I just happen to be the loudest person in the room right now that's getting some of the attention, saying some of the things that most people want to say but are afraid to for whatever reason.
Or don't know how to.
Exactly.
Right?
We have to fix it, and it's going to take all of us. Right now, I'm just trying to rip the Band-Aid off, and we can start talking about it, and where do we go from here? How do we fix what we have let happen? And make no mistakes, we all have let it happen.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in the trade for the last, and I criticize the last 30 years. I mean, sure, it goes back farther than that. I'm just using my experience as a reference. But the 30 years, we're going downhill. And if we don't put a stop to it, unfortunately, more young men and women are going to be lost.
There's not a single person in this world that hasn't taken a shortcut at some point or another in their life, right? It's just acknowledging, hey, risk versus reward. Taking a shortcut whenever you're filling your water bottle up is different than taking a shortcut when you're working three-phase in a hot corner pole.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And that's, unfortunately, the young guys, and I say this all the time to the JLs, everybody's watching. Whether you realize it or not, they're watching what you do, and they're imitating your behavior. They don't have that experience to make those risk assessments that you do. You have 20 or 30 years of experience, and you know how things are going to react. And even though you're that experienced and that prepared, you can't predict everything that's going to go sideways.
No.
You don't know what's happening 2 spans down. I mean, yes, we check the pole and span above and below, but what's going on 3 spans down that a cross arm is about ready to break in 2 that you missed because you didn't look at it from above, and all that tension, all that energy stored could release in a heartbeat. And our apprentices and young journeymen don't have that set of eyes. They don't have the experienced eyes that some of us do.
Yeah. They don't have the in-depth knowledge of being able to recognize some of those hazards yet, right? Because they don't even know that they're hazards yet. And I've had this conversation with some of the older guys in the trade, 20, 25 years experience. that don't want that leadership role. They just want to be a journeyman lineman. Well, whether you like it or not, if you're a journeyman lineman with 20 years experience, you are already in a leadership role. Because I promise you, your crew has guys with less experience on it. And whether you like it or not, they're watching you, they're looking up to you, they're learning from you. Whether the right way or the wrong way to do something, they're learning from you one way or another, right?
Absolutely. And the apprentice is a leader. I mean, you have a fifth step apprentice and you've got a first step apprentice. That first step apprentice and even the groundmen are going to be look up to the fifth step like, hey, I want to be what he is one day. You know, they look at you and a little bit of awe and a little bit of envy sometimes that you've got more time in, or you know what. Because no one wants to be the bottom man on the pole. I mean, we've all been there. It's not fun. You know, we all have to pay our dues. We all got to come up that way, or should anyway. But you're a leader, no matter what role you're in. I mean, even a groundman, if you've got a wife and kids at home, you lead your family there. So someone is always watching you as an example of how to model what they need to be doing.
And that's a great point. It's not just at work. It's in life. Yeah, no, that's a great point. You've developed recently this program of the school group that you have, right? And that's SKOOL, school. And let's talk about what is that all about, and where can people find it?
It is a online platform. Everybody thinks social media, and it sort of is in a way, but it's an online community specifically for linemen and people that are associated with the trade. There's not advertisements. It's all content that we create and put on there. It's conversations. One of the biggest channels, or at least so far, is we go through module 1, and I ask everyone to go to the channel, your first hard lesson. And the amount of honesty and how people are opening it up on what they've experienced. You know, we've foremen that have apprentices that got hurt in the bucket with them. If you can read it and not tear up, you're a better man than I am. I mean, because I can't read any of them without it tugging on my heart and picturing myself and my crews and people that I know in that exact same position.
I think what I realized the most when I started reading that part of it is how much of that happens that doesn't get talked about. Yeah, the fatalities get reported. Yes, some of the near misses get reported, but there's a lot of them that don't. But these guys still wear that when they go home every day, right? It's one of those, oh my gosh, I almost got this kid who's been in the trade for 6 months hurt. What was I doing? I wasn't thinking. I was having a bad day. But it almost changed someone's life forever. That happens a lot.
A bad day for you as a leader and a foreman could be someone else's last day.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's that important and that serious. And we need to hold each other accountable. I mean, we're on these crews and with these guys more than we are our wives and kids usually.
Yep.
Especially if you're storms and, you know, on call. It's a lot.
Yep.
And if we don't hold each other accountable and help prop each other up, then why are we doing it?
Yeah. So school's on there, and it's, like you said, it's an online. I look at it as like kind of mini chat rooms, right? It's got different topics, and there's conversations going on underneath each topic. And the more people that get involved in the conversation, the more we're all going to grow and the better it's going to go, right? So I encourage people to kind of come out of the woodwork and let's talk about it. Let's have conversations. Let's chime in on some of these topics. But there's all kinds of them. There's topics about overhead. There's topics about leadership. There's topics about safety, grounding, confined spaces, all kinds of stuff, right?
The ET&D best practices
Yeah.
that most of us and hopefully more people will get involved with. That's the heartbeat of what we do. I mean, that's our baseline. And without understanding the hazards, like you said, how can you prepare for them? If you can't recognize them, what you don't know, you don't know. And unfortunately, in this trade, what you don't know can kill you.
Yep, 100%. The safety culture around our industry, I feel like it's kind of changing and evolving. I don't know if it's for the better or the worse sometimes, right? And we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but when safety was developed, it was developed with the best intentions, right? It was developed because people were getting hurt and they knew they needed to do something different to stop that. I feel like it's kind of morphed over time and has kind of checked into hey, let's watch this PowerPoint, let's sign this piece of paper, and that's safety now. Do you feel like that's pretty widespread across the industry?
It seems to be. And from coast to coast, north to south, and I call it safety theater a lot of times.
Okay.
Because it's like we're putting on a show. We're checking boxes. We've lost the heart of safety. We've turned safety from being about you and me and us going home, or the guys being safe, into risk management and loss prevention. And if you go to most college and universities now, it's safety and loss prevention is the course curriculum. All important, all necessary. But loss prevention and risk management is not safety. Safety is the heart of what we do. It's not a line item in a budget somewhere. It's not a floor in some office building or, a division. Safety should be what we do out in the field, boots on the ground, day in and day out, to make sure that we all go home.
Yeah, I agree. At what point do you feel like safety kind of switched from being safety into that? Was it 5 years ago? Was it 20 years ago? Was there a defining moment, or did it just kind of keep snowballing?
I think it goes back probably even to 80s, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, when we started getting away from the blue collar and more. We pushed college. Coming out of high school. We lost working with our hands. The only way to make money and be successful in life is go to college and get a 4-year degree. Well, we all know that. If we're in the trades, really? I mean, most of us, or a lot of us, have the potential to make more than most college-educated people will in 5 years. It's sort of insane. The plumbers and electricians and the trades are, the millionaires of the next decade or 20 years, especially with the information and AI boom. Someone's got to build everything.
Yeah, there's still got to be sweat and dirt involved at some point.
But that's where I think we got off track. It's back in the early 80s when we started pushing college and getting away from some of the trade schools and some of the stuff. I mean, I had a home ec class when I was in high school. I mean, I graduated in the 90s. We had shop class. We had a lot of things, of course, from rural southeastern Kentucky. That was, most of us didn't plan on leaving high school and going to college. That was a dream.
I was having a conversation with a lineman the other day, and I've known him for probably 15 years. And we were talking about safety, and he was like, you know what, I feel like safety is set up to make linemen fail these days. Do you feel that way?
It can be. When we get into the whole corporate safety theater thing, of checking the boxes, well, you had this training on November 4th of 2023. We taught you how to do it the right way. Why did you deviate from what we expected you or told you to do? And safety isn't, we have safety manuals and policies and rules. It's not black and white. And I wish the world was sometimes, but we all live in that gray area in between. We have to educate and train our people well enough that they can make decisions based on their experience in the situations they're in. We have to let them think. They know the job better than most safety or corporate people can. We do the work. We understand what's involved. Sometimes it'd be nice to say, I appreciate your opinion. Take a couple steps back. Let us handle it. Now, don't get me wrong. We have to have guardrails and keep us in line sometimes, and we need accountability from safety departments too. But we don't need someone, well, I'm not sure exactly what you're doing, but my book is telling me you're doing it wrong. We have to involve everybody. The skilled labor, the college kids, some of the corporate, entities. We all need to sit down at the table together and figure out how we can fix this. We all were part of it. We're all going to have to be part of the solution, but it starts with us at an individual level.
100%. And I feel like our industry is one of those industries that has so much gray area. Like you said, it's not black and white. You can't fit it in a book. The gray area in our industry is almost like the old cans they used to have with the snakes in them. When you took the lid off, all the snakes popped out at you. That's how much gray area is in our industry. It just kind of jumps out at you all the time because every job's different. Every setup is different. Every pole's different. There's no two things that are going to be the same throughout the course of a day, a week, a year, any of that, right? So it makes it hard to say, oh, you've got to do it this way every time, no matter what. It's hard to do that in this industry.
It's impossible. I mean, we all joke around, well, it looks good on paper.
Yeah.
You know, at a dig at the engineers.
Yep.
Because they're college educated and some of the most intelligent people in the world. I like to say linemen are field engineers. We engineer everything out in the field.
Yep.
Yes, this is what you think it needs to be, and okay, well, that it's not going to work that way. So this is the way we have to do it. If people would just listen a little more, I think we would get a lot more done.
Yep.
But it's a challenge for sure.
Talking about, you know, safety theater and paperwork and things of that sort. Let's talk about job briefings for a minute. There's a lot of mindsets behind job briefings that feel like a job briefing is there to find something wrong. And I feel like that's there because people have used it that way industry-wide for a while, right? You feel that same way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first thing, if you have an accident or incident on your job site and people show up, what's the first thing you ask for? Where's your job briefing at?
Yep.
That's the first thing they go to.
Yep.
I think we do a really, really good job most of the time, at least in my experience, of having discussions. Where we fail a lot of the time is putting that to paper.
Yep.
We can talk about it for 30 or 40 minutes. You can't capture a 30-minute conversation in a front and back sheet of paper.
No.
That's just not possible. And that's where I hope some of the technology and AI and some of the stuff is going to help go moving forward. But involving everyone in the job briefing too. I mean, it's not for the journeyman or whatever. It's not. We've all pencil whipped job briefings. I've done it. If you say you haven't, then yeah, I don't know if I believe that or not. Yeah. But maybe you didn't. Maybe you've done everything the right way every day of your life on the job doing line work. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just not probable.
Yeah. Or you didn't do very many of them.
Yeah.
Right? I do think that mindset behind them needs to change. I was talking with Chad Shemp on an episode, and he was talking about how they are doing something different with their job briefings, and they're doing a scoring technique where they're proactive with them. The job briefings aren't just sitting in a file cabinet until somebody has an accident. They're going in proactively. They're evaluating these job briefings. They're scoring them based on a metric, and then they're going back to the crews and being like, hey, we scored your job briefings from last month. You did really good on this, this, and this. We'd like for you to work on X, Y, Z to make them a little bit better. And he's seen a lot of really good input from the guys, and guys are getting more involved in these job briefings. I feel like that probably needs to be adapted industry-wide a little bit more, because if that happens and people are proactive with these briefings, the guys are going to get more invested in it. They're going to want to do it more because we're not paddling them with the job briefing. We're actually using it constructively, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the goal, is to get those conversations.
Yeah.
We've all had job briefings. We'll read it off the paper verbatim. And everybody good, and you see everybody's, no one's present. No one's paying attention. They're a million miles away, or, they got that glazed over deer in the headlight look. You good? Yeah. Okay, so what are you doing today?
Line work.
Yeah.
I hate that answer.
But what specifically are you doing? And it shows, okay, so you know what you're doing. So what's Bill doing over here, or what's Dave doing? And having those conversations and really getting the crews to engage with each other.
Yep.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. That's what's going to make a difference for sure. Let's talk about near miss reporting, right? And it's because it's kind of had the same mindset around it. I know a lot of people that work at different utility companies or different contractors are scared to death to report a near miss because they're going to be penalized for it. How do we get past that?
That's a struggle. I won't start saying that the near miss reporting or the good catch, I think that's one of the greatest tools that we have.
If it's used right.
If it's used right, correctly. People are hesitant to participate because it's been weaponized.
Yeah.
It's like telling on yourself. Well, were they doing the right thing? Maybe not. I mean, the context matters, what was going on. But so often those near misses or good catches, especially a near miss, is taken and weaponized against the crew, and they're punished for sharing that information. So if you punish me for being honest, I'm just not going to tell you what's going on. I mean, that's the quickest way to shut a crew down and solicit silence from an entire industry, is being punishing and being punitive because someone's being honest. You're going to punish me for being honest. You ask me to be straight and honest with you, and then when I do it, you're punishing me for it.
Yep. Yeah. I look at it like a yellow light, right? If you're a driver, chances are at some point you've ran a yellow light. Now, you knew it was wrong. You knew you should have done it, but it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
So you did that. You ran that yellow light. Now the cop pulls you over. You've ran that yellow light. Are you telling him you ran it? Or are you telling him, no, I didn't know it was yellow, right? This near miss is kind of the same thing.
It is.
You know, it's acknowledging, yes, I ran that yellow light. Yes, I know it was wrong. What can I do different so I don't do it again? And I think if companies went about it with that mindset and that approach, guys would be a little more proactive in talking about these near-miss situations, and we'd get a lot of things fixed before it was an accident.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And people, that would be reinforcing the positive, that we're learning from everybody. We're not punishing anybody. Yes, there has to be consequences on certain things.
Of course.
Personal accountability. If you've done something wrong, we shouldn't fire somebody on the spot, because we need to have a conversation. Because no one's coming in at the start of the day and maliciously trying to get somebody hurt or tear up equipment. We're not starting the day with that in mind. A little bit of forgiveness and a little bit of understanding, and being able to empathize and put yourself in that position. But I think that's where the difficulty is, that so many, unfortunately, of our corporate leadership and even some of our safety leadership haven't spent time out in the field or in their tools. And don't get me wrong, there's some great people and truly, truly phenomenal people that care about what we do in both management and in safety. But until you've been out in the shit, in the mud, in the storms, it's something you just can't understand.
Yep.
And I think that's where part of the disconnect is at.
For sure. And I feel like we were talking before about the college era and that push for college. Before that push for college, your people in the corner offices of these utility companies were from the field. They got the blood, sweat, and tears. They went through the mud. They did it. So they were a little bit more in tune with some of that. Then culture shift happens, and now we've got a lot of people in these corner offices that never put on a pair of gloves and sleeves, never answered a call at 1 a.m. to go out and get somebody's lights on in a sleet storm or anything like that. And when you try to replace that with a piece of paper, you lose the ability to relate to the people at that level big time, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They've not got, and I know they've gotten phone calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, or their friends or whatever. But when you have another buddy that call, hey, man, did you hear what happened? And your heart sinks.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's coming next. I mean, were they flashed? What happened?
Yep.
And you can tell by the tone in the voice when they call. And they're not being, jovial and not, hey, what's up, man? It's, man, did you hear what happened?
Yeah.
And then it's sort of that disbelief. And when you know that person personally, when you've done that work, I mean, we hear about what's going on, and we can literally picture ourselves in that exact same situation, or most of us can, depending on what's going on. And we know how it could have went sideways.
Yeah.
When we start speculating, oh, man, what was he thinking, or what was he doing, or why didn't they do this? And it's always easier to look back and, hindsight's always 20/20. And then that makes you start thinking about all the stuff you've done and how many near misses you've had and how much stuff that you haven't talked about or how much you haven't reported. And it's holding a mirror up to your own personal behavior every time we hear something.
Yeah.
Because we all know that tomorrow it could be us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to face that reality sometimes, for sure. So if safety is truly number one in the industry, right? That's everybody says. Number one thing, safety. Number one thing, safety. Why is the system so focused on production and outage times? I mean, if safety is number one, wouldn't we be working everything de-energized all the time?
You would think, wouldn't you? And I'm sure you know Mike Rowe and his famous safety third.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I've got that sticker on some of my things, but safety is first until it's not.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, not even pressure from management or clients or customers, just pressure on ourselves at the end of the day. We've been out here humping all day long. We've got one thing to do left. And, okay, if we do everything the right way, it's going to take us 15 minutes. But do we really need to do all that? And we justify that stuff in our mind, and it's amazing what we can talk ourselves into.
Yeah.
And how quick, it's just going to take a second, or it's just this one thing, and it's that one little moment. And that's where we have to rely on each other to, really, man, come on.
Yeah.
Because it's just like that, and we all do. It's that fast.
That's not always easy to do, You've got your buddy up there. He's good at what he does. You know that, he's got all the skills that he should have. Yeah, no big deal. Tie that phase in without putting cover up on it. It'll be fine till it's not.
And it is fine.
Yeah.
And again, until it's not. Yeah. I mean, and you never know that variable. You never know when that moment of it's not's going to be.
Yep. So let's shift gears to the leadership part of it for a minute. And what do you think real leadership actually looks like in our trade? Is there a set leadership looks like this?
I think the phrase servant leader is overused a lot of times, but having a servant's heart of trying to be better, and by you being better on your own personal accountability of helping everybody around you be better. That should be our goal, is what can I do to help you be better at what you're already great at that, but is there anything I can do to help you? I'm here to support you, and I want you to be all that you can be and do the best you can. How can I help? We all started out in this trade and not knowing anything. Didn't know shit from Shinola, as the saying goes. But someone has to take the time.
Yep.
Someone has to show the interest. Someone has to teach you. A true leader is that teacher. They take the time. They show the interest. They show you that you care. If they don't care about you, why would you ever care about them? And that's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in now. It's all me usually, and especially some of and not disparaging the younger guys. I mean, I know we talk trash about the kids coming up these days. I promise you, my foreman and my JLs when I started out talked same mad shit about me. I was worthless. I was useless.
Come on, kid.
A matter of fact, and I know I mentioned Eddie, Eddie's first opinion on me, he told me years later, he said, I looked at you and he said, he might make a decent operator one day. That was his opinion of me.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was unproven, I was green. He had no clue. And that was the best he thought I could ever do. I love that little old man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Some of those old timers were the best.
Oh, he's like my grandpa. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. But they knew that being a leader isn't a title. It's not a job title. It's a trait. It's a characteristic, right? You don't have to be the crew foreman to be a leader.
Anybody can be a leader.
Anybody can be a leader out there, right? And I think that's pretty important. I've got different experiences than you've got, and everybody's experiences are different, right? When I came up at the utility, our mindset was make everybody on the crew better than you are. If everyone's doing that and sharing the knowledge and the tidbits and the tricks and all of that stuff, then the crew's getting better. And I feel like on the outside, when I transitioned and went to outside construction, I feel like a lot of guys don't want to have that mentality, or they don't have that mentality. They have the, hey, let's get it done as fast as possible so I can go home mentality. Hey, you second step apprentice, go drag that stuff through the mud for me. I got line work to do up here.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that happens a lot on the outside, and I don't know what the fix is there, but I think something's got to change on that part to make more leaders.
Well, the question is who ever taught them to be a leader?
Yeah.
The trade is younger now than it's ever been. Technology is better than it's ever been. And yet people are still going home missing parts and pieces, or not going home at all. We got to start having those conversations. We have to have people that are willing to teach and slow down. Be deliberate about it. Yes, we understand we have work to do, but what is the cost? At what cost are we running at breakneck speed for? What are we willing to sacrifice to get where we're going? I'm not willing to sacrifice anybody I work with or anybody I know or anybody in the trade. And that's the reason I get so worked up about it. I am done saying that's good enough. because it's not.
Yep, I agree.
And it hasn't been.
I agree. And it shouldn't be.
It never should have been.
Yeah. So I know a lot of times when people hear the term leader, they think of the guy in the corner office. So let's talk about that guy for a minute. Why do you feel like so many of these leaders across our industry avoid the field? You don't see them out there. And I know they're busy. They've got meetings and emails and all the things they have to do. But do you feel like it's important for them to get out and be in the field a little bit more than what they are?
I think it's imperative. And unless they do, and not everyone's the same, I understand, everyone's background. I think a lot of them, especially the ones that didn't come from the tool, I won't say feel intimidated, but how can you go out into the mud and the dirt and talk line trash with a bunch of linemen if you've never come up? Yes, you can be in the industry for 30 years and pick up on some of the lingo and something, but there's no real connection.
Yeah.
I mean, but there doesn't have to be. Even if you're a VP or an executive at any company, you can still show you care. Learn somebody's name. I mean, all these companies are giant and it's impossible to know, but being present matters.
Yeah.
It's presence, not position, that matters in this trade.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it's something that I've got a different mindset than a lot of people about, but I feel like everyone in this industry should spend 6 months as a groundman or an entry-level person on a crew. I don't care if you're in a call center answering a phone. I don't care if you're an engineer. I don't care if you're a CEO. At some point in that career, you should be made to go spend 6 months on a crew as a groundman and walk the walk, experience the life a little bit. You know what I mean?
That would be,
it'd be awesome. It's impossible, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but my mind went to racing and seeing some of the people that I know that are in offices, and I can see them right now trying to use a set of snap diggers.
Yeah.
Or even set up a set of cones and around, or barricade a truck.
Yeah.
A little humility and real world experience would go a long way.
For sure.
Just a small taste. I don't think they're ready for what most linemen deal with on a day-to-day basis, or groundmen or apprentices or anybody else.
Yeah. I think the industry would be a different place if we could get that accomplished.
Perspective. It would definitely put things in a better perspective.
So let's talk about the difference between authority and influence, right? Because I feel like you hear a lot, everyone has stop work authority. And that's right, they probably do. But you've got to also be able to have the influence that when you make that stop work authority, people pay attention and listen, right? So how do we find that balance there?
I know, especially with the IBW and the AT&T partnership, we talk about stop work authority, and a good friend of mine has sort of changed the phrasing and went from stop work authority to obligation. Yes, everyone has the authority to stop work, but if you're on a crew and you're out in the right of way, and you're obligated, you don't get the option to think about it. If you see something, you hear see something, say something. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, over the years, we have bashed our apprentices and everybody else and conditioned them so much by talking, oh, shut up, grunt, or whatever. When I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. There's 1,000 things we've said, and we have literally silenced their opinion and their voice because of that. Well, if you down talk or trash somebody all the time, your apprentice, and he sees something and you're up in the air and he's afraid to say something because of the way you've treated him. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we need to be soft. I mean, the line work is an inherently hard, job to have.
Yep.
It's not for the weak or the timid. But have a little understanding, and if you've literally bashed whoever or degraded them or made them feel like their opinion doesn't matter, you're going to silence them. They're going to shut up. So what happens when they see something that really could change or save your life, and you've literally rubbed them or pushed them so far in the dirt that they're afraid to say something to you?
Yeah.
And then they're caught in between that. Well, do I say something? Well, he's going to get mad if I do. And I hear it all the time. We have stolen their voice because for whatever reason we diminish their opinion or because we were done that way a lot of times. I mean, years ago, we come up a lot harder than the guys now did. I mean, I think I've had every piece of hardware that can be attached to the pole thrown at me at Mach speed. And even at 6'2" and right at 300 pounds, I promise you, my big hind end can crawl inside of a hard hat. if it goes,
It wasn't an accidental drop from the top of the pole and scream headache.
No.
It was hey, I'm gonna hit him with this because he did it wrong or he didn't listen or yeah.
Yeah, it was a zoom past your head and headache.
Yeah. Yep. The thing I think that's important about the stop work authority or the obligation, which I like that twist on it, right? For you young guys who are out there listening to this, you might have brought something up and your foreman might have crawled in your ass and called you stupid and why'd you ever say anything? And I get that, and that sucks. Don't let that stop you from doing it the next time. He's not gonna hurt you for saying it. He may degrade you mentally, and no, I don't agree with that, and that's not right. But at the same time, you can rest your head at night knowing that, hey, I thought something might be wrong. I said something, because if you don't say something, somebody gets hurt, you're really going to regret that for the rest of your life.
That's a weight that you cannot ever put down.
Yeah.
You will carry that till the end of your days. Yeah. And I say the same thing even about JLs, and we're always talking about how do we tell each other that, hey, man, you know better than that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a son and a daughter. I can't imagine someone having to go tell my daughter that I'm not coming home because I wasn't man enough or they weren't man enough to call me out. I couldn't do anyone else that way. I mean, and I'll try not to get too far in it because I'll end up crying like a baby over that, especially when it comes to my kids. We all have families. We all have people that we love. We all have people that love us. Imagine putting someone, your brother on your crew, in that position where he has to choose between telling you, man, you know better than that, or remaining silent, and he remains silent, and you die.
Yep. Yep.
That's not a weight that I'm willing to. I won't carry it.
No,
I won't.
And I was never in that mindset either. Like, and I've had guys before get mad at me because hey, take another blanket up there with you. Hey, put 2 more guts on, and they'll come down and they'll be mad at me. And I'm like, listen, dude, I'm the one knocking on your wife's door if something goes wrong up here today. Whether you like it or not, we're gonna put another gut on there. We're gonna have another blanket. We're gonna get another guy up there for a set of hands. Whatever we need to do, because I'm not telling your wife you're not coming home because I didn't make you do it the right way.
Absolutely.
And I try to carry that with me a lot, and I hope that a lot of other people think that same way because that's the only way we're going to change anything.
I think a lot of people really do think that way. I mean, just from the reactions that I'm getting on, like the school platform and everything else, awesome. There's a lot more of us out there than we realize. We all think it. We all feel it. Why in the hell haven't we all stood up and said something before now? Why? We could have done this at any point in time. It's on us. What we tolerate, that's what happens. Yep. If we refuse to tolerate what's going on, it has to change. We're the ones doing the work. We're the ones up in the air. We're the ones down in the manholes. We're the ones working the switchboards at DCC. What we allow to happen will continue to happen. If we're tired of it, then stand up and say we're tired of it. No one can make you do anything. We're not holding a gun to your head.
That's it.
I mean, and that's one of the best things about the union side of things, in my opinion, because I've lived both.
Yep.
No one can make me do anything. I mean, I can deuces.
Yep.
I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. So why do we tolerate what we tolerate when we know better?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. It's that mindset of either I'm too scared to say something because I'm going to have to go find a job somewhere else, or they're scared of retaliation. I don't know what it is, but we need to figure out what it is and figure out how to make it stop. If you're out there in the field and let's say you're pushing a crew, right, and that crew doesn't follow what you say or doesn't listen to you, that says something about your leadership style.
Absolutely.
And I think we've got those people out there now just because I don't 100% agree with the way crew foremen come into their role every time. Everybody does it a little bit different, and there's a lot of guys who will top out as a German lineman, and within 6 months they're a crew foreman. And I personally don't agree with that. That's just my own personal perspective. But I think when you do that, you get these situations where, hey, kid, you're not going to tell me what to do. And I think that culture needs to stop too. Right?
It does. And not everyone comes into being a foreman the right way. You know, sometimes whether it right, wrong, or even, and I don't agree with it either.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's the way the world is right now. We're pushing harder, faster, and because we can't keep up with the demand that we need to do. Yep. And it's just going to get worse from here. But that being said, the old hands can teach the young kids a thing or two. And if you're the old hand or the older guy as the JL or the lineman on the crew, and you've got a young foreman, show him a thing or two. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of healthy competition, and then, I mean, it's all a good-natured fun and everything else. Oh, okay. Now what, kid? No,
yeah, we did it your way.
This is your way. Yeah. It's your show.
Yeah.
And we have to, as the older, and I hate saying that now because I'm right at 50 years old, we're not the young guys anymore.
Yeah, we crossed that line.
As much as I hate to admit it, yes. But we can still lead from that position. You don't have to be the foreman to lead. You can explain things, and you can be the guardrails and let him – because not everybody wants to be a foreman. I mean, a lot of old guys don't want the headache of responsibility. And, I mean, let's be honest, the pay is not that much more for a foreman than it is a JL anyway. Sometimes it's easier just to go back to your tools and work in a bucket. I ain't got to worry about all the paperwork. I don't have to worry about all the GFs this and the oversight that and locates. And it's nice just to go. There's something to be said for a day of just physical labor.
Just going to work. Yeah.
And not thinking.
Along the lines of spreading some knowledge and having conversations and your school program that you've got going out there and Linemen Bullshit. So what happens when the truth gets buried and doesn't show up in the reports and stuff like that, and that just keeps happening? What's that do for us? Obviously it's not helping anything, right?
It helps the company, and I understand. We can say we polish a turd or do some spin and some optics, and we always paint things in a positive light. Mm-hmm. When we're admitting to fault or admitting to what happened, we always want to spin it to it suits us or makes us look as best as possible considering the situation and circumstances. I get that. But it's doing a disservice to the guys out in the field. And until we're truthful, until we're honest, until we have those hard conversations and admit that we fucked up, I do it several times a day. I'm not perfect. No one else is. But until we can admit it and look ourselves in the eye and say, that's on us, we've got to do better, and then share that with everything else. That's the key thing is we hear about these incidents. We hear about the accidents. We hear about fatalities and this. And then it just sort of fades into the background.
Disappears.
Until the next one. And then the next one.
Yep.
And we may be 4 or 5 deep, and we still don't know what happened on the first one.
Yep.
If we ever find out what happened on the first one. I mean, there's incidents and, investigations and OSHA. There's a lot of legal stuff that's involved that we can't share stuff. But we never follow back up.
Yep.
Even if it's 2 years later. It's still good information. Someone was hurt. Someone lost your life. What did we learn from it?
Yep.
I mean, they paid for that lesson, and we're just wasting it.
Yep. Yeah, I've mentioned this before on other episodes, but I've got a pretty strong mindset towards this. I wish that we could create a program that was anonymous. No names, no addresses, that kind of stuff, right? But details of these accidents, the major accidents, the fatalities, that kind of stuff. And, let's get all the details, crew size, what time of day, what was the weather like, how many hours had they been working, all of that stuff that makes a difference that doesn't show up in all of these reports. And there's got to be a trend there somewhere. I feel like if we can do that often enough and get the lawyers out of it, right? We're not pointing a finger. We're not saying anybody's at blame. We're just trying to get details and have conversations around what is happening, because something's happening, and obviously it's getting worse instead of better.
We've got to figure it out. I mean, we have to have those conversations. Like you said, not shaming anybody, not blaming anybody, but we have to learn from each other.
Yep.
We don't need to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. You know, Einstein's definition of insanity. It doesn't make sense. I understand the legal ramifications on some of this. I understand the liability side of things. I get it. But the guys are out here, you know, bleeding for the trade, for the companies, and what are we doing to help them get better? If, again, it's lessons that we're not sharing with people, and we're just repeating the same mistakes because we can't share honestly and openly.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, it's developed a stigma around the safety culture, period, for that same reason, right? We're not learning, we're not getting better. We're just having conversations and having meetings and signing off on sign-in sheets and that kind of stuff. What do you think it is about the current safety culture that makes the linemen roll their eyes every time a safety guy pulls up on a job site? Because it happens.
Oh,
right?
Well, and I used to love when the safety guys pulled up on my job site.
Yeah.
I loved arguing back and forth with them. And, well, where does it say that in OSHA? Show me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where we're failing on that, I mean, we've weaponized safety. We've weaponized the safety department. And, you know, I don't know that we really, I won't say we don't need a safety department, but I think should be separate. We've combined safety, like I said, with loss prevention and risk management.
Yep.
All those things, you know, not knocking risk management or loss prevention. Those are a necessity and needed, especially from the legal and the corporate side of things. But safety is about people.
Yep.
Not about numbers, not about metrics, not about anything else.
Not about discipline.
No,
right?
It's about people.
Yep.
And once we get back to that, even from the safety department coming down, you know, ask the lineman. And if you've not come up with your tools, hey, man, what are you doing? I mean, or why? I know they don't want to be embarrassed by asking what they're doing either, but why are you doing that way? I mean, what made you do this instead of that? You know, having a questioning attitude and being humble and letting them. Most linemen love to talk. You know, we're all good storytellers. So ask them questions. Let them tell you their story.
Yep.
Get to know them as a person and build that relationship between yourself, if you're a safety pro, and the crews. And, you know, if you're on the crews in jails, not all safety pros are bad. I mean, there's some asshats, don't get me wrong.
For sure.
But they're just look at some of us. We're not the most admirable people sometimes either. But it takes all of us,
Yep.
you know, and until we start all working together and rowing in the same direction, we're just going to keep butting heads and keep getting people hurt.
Yep. If you could walk in tomorrow and take any part of the system and just make it disappear, just blow it up, it's gone, what part would you get rid of and blow up tomorrow?
Units.
Yeah.
Units.
Yeah.
More people are pushed and hurt based on a unit system and pushing production over safety. And I know that's not the intent, and that's not where we started out and what everybody wanted. But that's where we're at. And you're not going to get anybody to buy into that. I mean, because you're talking about profits and money, and everyone's here to make money, including us. But pushing unit production over T&E, and I mean, that's the reason the power companies and the co-ops, and there's the reason they use contractors, because contractors push the limits,
Yep.
can do things not unsafe, but, you know, they take more calculated risks.
Yep.
And are able to than the power company for whatever reason being,
Yep.
and whatever reason they use to justify it. But we have to slow down. That's the thing.
I feel like that bid system has turned into a race to the bottom.
It absolutely has.
Cheapest bid is not necessarily the best quality work or the work that you want on your system, but it's the cheapest. And until we recognize that, hey, maybe that's not what we need as a whole for our industry, right? Because I feel like that does make a difference in getting people hurt. When they're pushing so hard for production because of how they bid that job, there's no other answers, but people are going to get hurt.
Oh, absolutely. There is no alternative. I mean, you're absolutely right. It has been the race to the bottom because of the unit system.
Yep. So what safety practices do you see that are working well and getting results?
A lot of the JHAs and the job briefings, it's coming back to the conversations again. And that's what it all comes back to, is having conversations.
Yeah.
You know, did people understand what you're saying? I mean, we can have a conversation, and I know what I said to you, but what you heard me say is not necessarily what I meant. And that lack of understanding, you know, when we stop and slow down, and I can't, Eddie was another one of his saying is, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yep.
You know, take your time, slow down, do it right the first time. And what's your rush? You know, we talk about some of the young kids that can climb poles like squirrels and everything else, even using the buck squeeze right now. Well, it doesn't do you a bit of good to get up a pole in 0.5 seconds if you don't know what you're doing when you get to the top of it.
Yeah. If you don't know how to work when you get there. Yeah.
Speed.
Yep. I agree. Yep.
That's the thing. I mean, just slow down, take your time, understand.
Yeah, and that communication is key, right? All of these things that spark more communication and spark more conversations are paramount. We need to have them. So what should leaders be trained on or developed to do differently for our industry, right? To change the industry. What kind of things do we need to be doing for leaders that we haven't been doing in the past?
Oh, that's a topic for a discussion all in itself, honestly. They need to lead from their heart. And one of the articles I wrote is, you know, forged hearts and brittle egos. You know, you have to lead from your heart. You have to care about the people that you're leading. And if you don't, people are going to know it. Yeah. I mean, if they don't care about you, why should I care? You know, that's the whole thing. And unfortunately, that's a lot of people's mentality. Well, they don't care about me. Why should I care about them? And we see it even in the companies. Well, why don't we take care of the equipment? Well, the company don't take care of me. I mean, so they're not going to take care of their equipment. And we say, well, would you do your own stuff that way?
Exactly right.
You know, tools go missing, trucks get damaged and not reported. I mean, do you do your own stuff that way?
Yeah.
Most of us don't. I mean, there's some people that just don't care.
There are some, yeah. Yeah. I feel like this industry requires confidence, right? You have to have confidence. There's a fine line between confidence and ego. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of times this industry, the leaders, especially some of the ones who got in a little bit younger and got that pickup early on and stuff, they get past the confidence level and go straight to ego. Well, do you know who I am? I'm the foreman. I'm in charge. That's what we're doing because I'm in charge. No, that's not the way it has to be, right? And I wish we could train that aspect of it a little bit better somehow. I don't know the answer there.
The leadership position is a responsibility. It's not necessarily, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
You have to earn that respect. You have to earn that trust. And if your crew doesn't trust you, then they're not going to follow you. And I mentioned that a couple times in other classes. And who do you work for that you would follow to hell and back? Would your people follow you to hell and back? And if they wouldn't, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
What type of a person are you? What type of leader you are?
Yep.
You know, leadership's in the hearts of the people that follow you. They sign up and they have to willingly follow you.
100%. I've got a story about that just kind of jumped to mind when you said that. So years ago, we've got 2 or 3 crews on the same job. It was a couple broke poles. Semi had hit a pole, a couple broke poles. And, you know, these 4-man crews, and crews are showing up, and this foreman's telling his crew, hey, we're going to start doing this, we're going to start doing that. Well, as we're pulling up, there's already 2 crews working, and there's a company guy there, pretty high up at the company, right? Not just a dock foreman, but pretty high up. And he starts telling one of the crews what to do. And the foreman turns and looks at him. He says, I don't know who the hell you think you are. And he knew who he was,
Yeah.
but I don't know who the hell you think you are. But these guys listen to me. They don't listen to you. And he was 100% right. Now, did he say it the wrong way? Probably. But in that moment, he was trying to get that company person to understand, you don't know what you're telling them to do. Don't micromanage us. Let us do our thing, right?
Well, I mean, but the field is our office.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get
it.
me wrong. The management, everything else, they sit in their offices and everything else. You know, don't come into my office and shit in my office.
Yeah.
And that's what he was doing. I mean, you wouldn't want me to come into your office in corporate and do that.
Yeah.
So why would it be right for you to come out?
Well, and it wasn't earned.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't have that relationship already with those guys. He did, it's not like he did that every day. If you do that every day for 6 months and you're out there helping those crews and that, then yeah, they're going to listen to you.
Yeah.
But don't come into a hairy job and start thinking you can run the show when you don't want anything to do with it on a regular basis, you know? And I think there's a lot to be learned from that mental part of it for sure. If these young linemen are out there, right, what's one thing they should be watching out for or kind of being aware of as they come into this trade? Because there's a lot of young people in the trade right now, right?
Anyone that can't admit they don't know.
Big red flag.
If you ever come across someone that cannot, and you ask a question, you're going to be able to look at someone. If they know the answer, they're going to be able to explain it to you. If they don't, there'll be that pause and they're searching for the answer to give you in your head. You know, be aware. You know, the situational awareness and what's going on. Someone who has enough gumption or pride about themselves to admit, hey, I don't know, but I tell you what, I'll find out, or we'll find out together, and that's the thing.
I agree with that. No, that's great. So if there's a utility executive person out there listening right now, what's the one truth that they need to acknowledge and kind of swallow that is getting overlooked right now?
Listen. You need to listen. All these problems, all these difficulties we have, you have the people that have the answers, and they're out in the field. Bring them in. Have a real conversation with them. Man-to-man, one-on-one, not executive to lineman or, you know, level the playing field. And be a little humble.
Because these guys are saying things. Linemen talk, right?
Oh.
If they're unhappy with something, they're going to say it. They may not say it in the right ways. They may be screaming in a meeting, or they may be doing whatever they shouldn't be doing, and I understand that. But that comes with passion, and that comes with not being recognized and not being heard over and over again. So they start figuring out different ways to bring it up. So if you can actually listen to your men and hear what they're telling you, maybe you can't fix it, but maybe you can change some things, right?
You know, if the linemen are complaining and carrying on about things, that means they still care. When it goes silent, that's when you need to worry.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So let's talk about messages to the trade, right? So if you're putting a message out there to the apprentice that just got started, other than the red flag about a journeyman not being able to admit when he doesn't know something, right? What message are you putting out there to these apprentices other than that?
Listen, ask questions, ask why. You know, your JL, your foreman's not always going to be able to take the time in that very moment to explain everything, and you have to understand that. We all want to know, and we have this instant gratification society now that we want everything now. It's not always going to be now, but don't let them forget it. Let them tell you, okay, we'll talk about it later, whatever. Well, remind them to talk about it later.
Yeah.
There's 3,000 things going on in a lineman's head at any one time. If you're working out a pole, you're 15 steps ahead in what you've got going on. And sometimes a question, if we stop and explain it in that moment, it distracts us from our task at hand. But make sure, you know, and I hate to use that corporate word or phrase, to circle back, but when you're sitting at the back of the truck in the evening, or when you're cleaning stuff off, or, hey, you know what I was asking about that? Why do we do it this way? Always have that quest for learning, and you know, another good friend of mine talks about being a student of the profession. We have to continuously learn. If you stop being stop being willing to learn. If you shut down and think you've learned everything or you know everything, that's when you need to just hang it up.
Yep.
Always ask why. Have a questioning attitude. Better yourself. The more knowledge once earned is something that can never be taken away from you. So if you learn that, if you go out and study it, it's yours forever.
That's awesome. What about the journeymen who are out there that are burnt out, they're tired, they've been pushing back against the system and trying to get things to change for a decade now? What kind of advice do you have for them?
You really going to let it beat you? You really going to let all this kick your ass? Step up, man. I mean, we all can. We're all capable of so much more than we do. And it's easy to get disgruntled and discouraged, and because we've fought the same bullshit for the last 30 years or the entirety of your career. Don't give up. Yeah. And obviously, if you're still in this trade, that you haven't given up. I mean, it's not for the weak of heart. It's not for the timid. It takes, and we joke about it all the time, you can't be right in the head to be a lineman anyway. You got to be a little off, a little touched, a little. There's something wrong with all of us. I mean, linemen maybe more so than the rest of the population. I don't know, but
I love it.
Don't give up. I mean, you never know. Like I said, people are always watching. Yeah. Something you may have said today may land in an apprentice's heart that he'll carry for the rest of his career. You never know what little insignificant moment in your life is going to inspire someone else. Yeah. Yeah. Just like Eddie and had some lineman bullshit.
Yeah.
You wouldn't understand.
That's it. Don't let it callous you, right? Figure out a different way to get some traction or do things differently, but don't let it callous you. I like it.
Back up and punt. I mean,
that's it.
The game's not over.
All right. So if people out there, they want to get involved in your school that you've got going on and stuff like that, where can they find you? How can they get involved in this?
They can go to school.com and it's under Linemen Bullshit. They can follow me on social media, which is Linemen Bullshit. There's a linemenbullshit.com webpage. I'm almost all the social media platforms. I don't do TikTok. I mean, I don't know why, but I've just never got into that yet.
Yep.
My daughter keeps telling me all the time that I need to do that next, but there's just so much. You don't have enough time.
Only so much bandwidth in a person.
Yes. Yep. And even as much as I'm on social media and on the school platform and doing everything else, in-person classes and instruction, you need to unplug. You got to step back and go, okay.
Yeah.
And
you got to find that balance.
Have to.
For sure. Well, we appreciate it. I want to encourage people to, speak up. Go out there, say the thing you're not supposed to say, or say the thing that's frowned upon if you're feeling it, if it's justified. Don't just hold it within, right? This whole movement with having conversations and the school and spreading knowledge and stuff that Kevin's doing, it's more about building people up and getting rid of the old culture. It's not about tearing the trade down and beating people up over it. It's more about this is what needs to happen to evolve and to change. And we love this culture. We love the industry, and we just got to get it to where it needs to be, right? There's so much room to advance, and that's what it's all about.
We've got to continually get better, and that's the thing. We have to help each other.
Yeah.
And if we can't help each other, then why bother?
Yeah. We've got to care enough to tell the truth.
And I use this line, and it always catches a lot of attention. Silence is consent. And that has a lot of overtones that people aren't comfortable hearing. But if you see something, say something.
Yep.
If something's going wrong on your crew and you don't speak up, you're guilty. You're an accomplice.
Part of the problem. Yep, I agree. Man, Kevin, I appreciate you, man. It's been a great conversation. I hope everybody can go out there and get involved and have some more participation in the school program. I think it's gonna make some great things happen.
Absolutely, I hope so. That's our goal, and that's what we're pushing for, is to make us all better.
Heck yeah, guys, go out there and find Linemen Bullshit on all the social media platforms. You can Google it; it'll come up, I'm sure. Just get involved, check it out, see what's going on out there. Until next time, let's talk about it. That's it for today's episode of PowerGridTalks, from the bucket trucks to the boardrooms.
I'm your host, Tom Williamson. I want to thank you for joining me as we talk to the people behind the scenes who keep our grid strong. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to hit that subscribe button, give it a share, and leave a review so we can keep bringing more voices from across the utility world to the conversation table. You can also find us at PowerGridTalks.com. Until next time, stay safe and keep the power flowing.